Amina was just 19, living with her aunt and uncle in a small house in Mbale, Uganda. Her parents had died when she was young, so her relatives took her in. She worked long hours at a nearby shop, trying to save a little money and help out where she could. That evening, she got delayed at work and came home a bit late. As soon as she stepped inside, her uncle's voice exploded in anger. He accused her of staying out to bring shame to the family, of being spoiled, of doing things she hadn't done. She tried to explain, but he didn't want to listen. Within minutes, her bag was thrown outside, clothes scattered into the mud. Her aunt stood there, arms folded. No one defended her. The sky opened up and it began to pour. Amina stood barefoot in the cold rain, trembling. No money, no phone, no place to go. Just a bag, her tears, and the weight of being unwanted. Amina stood outside the gate, soaked from head to toe. Rainwater dripped from her hair. Her clothes clung to her skin, and her feet were freezing in the muddy ground. She knocked softly, then louder, begging them to open the door. "Please, I have nowhere to go," she cried, but there was no kindness left behind that door. Her aunt peered through the curtain, then shut it without a word. Her little cousins peeked and laughed, as if it were a joke. The same people she once called family were now strangers, cold and cruel. She stood there for a while, hoping someone would change their mind, but no one did. No one came. Finally, with her small bag pressed tightly to her chest, she turned and walked away. The streets were dark and wet, and every step felt heavier than the last. She had no umbrella, no phone, and not a single shilling in her pocket. Cars splashed her as they passed, and people hurried by without a second glance. With every step, the storm outside seemed to match the one inside her heart. Loud, wild, and angry, she kept walking, hoping the rain would hide her tears. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she couldn't go back. Not to that house, not to those people. She had nothing now, just pain, and the smallest hope that maybe somewhere, someone might care. The rain wouldn't stop, and Amina was cold, tired, and lost. Her feet hurt from walking for hours. Every shop and home was closed. No one looked at her twice. Finally, she spotted an old bus stop, broken roof, rusted bench, but at least it was dry. She sat down, pulled her knees to her chest, and tried not to cry again. The night was quiet, except for the sound of rain hitting the metal roof above her. A few minutes later, an old man walked by, pushing a bicycle with a basket full of tools. He paused when he saw her sitting there alone. His name was Baba Kato, though she didn't know that yet. He didn't ask who she was or what happened. He just looked at her with soft eyes, like he understood. Gently, he reached into his bag and pulled out an extra shawl, old but clean, and handed it to her. "You'll catch a cold," he said softly. Then he took out a piece of roasted maize and broke it in half, giving her the bigger piece. Amina looked at him, surprised. No one had been kind to her all day. She took the shawl and the food with shaky hands, whispering, "Thank you." Baba Kato just nodded and sat beside her, not too close, not asking questions. In that small moment, under that broken shelter, the world felt a little less cruel. It was the first warmth she'd felt in days, not from the shawl, but from kindness. The rain finally slowed by morning, but the cold still sat deep in Amina's bones. She was half asleep on the bus stop bench when Baba Kato gently tapped her shoulder. "Come," he said, with a kind smile. She hesitated. Where would they go? But something in his voice felt safe, like he wasn't just offering a place. He was offering peace. So she followed him quietly through the muddy roads, past quiet homes, until they reached a small house in Kira. It was just one room with a tin roof and a wooden door that creaked when it opened. Inside, it was simple: a small bed, a mat on the floor, a few tools in the corner, and the smell of oil from bicycle parts. Baba Kato lived alone and fixed bikes for a living. He pointed to the mat and said, "You can rest here." Then he handed her a warm plate of posho and beans. Amina hadn't eaten a real meal in days. She didn't even realize how hungry she was until the first bite made her eyes water. That night, for the first time since everything fell apart, she felt safe. There were no angry voices, no cold streets, no doors slammed in her face, just the soft sound of rain on the roof, a full belly, and a mat on the floor that somehow felt softer than any bed she'd ever known. Amina closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, slept without fear. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Amina's life began to change. Every morning, she woke up early, swept the little house, and helped Baba Kato prepare breakfast. He taught her how to fix bicycle tires, oil the chains, and use the tools in his shop corner. Her hands, once soft and unsure, grew stronger and more confident. She listened carefully to everything Baba said, soaking up his knowledge like sunshine after rain. In the afternoons, she started helping their neighbors, carrying water for old Mama Naki, sweeping the dusty front yard for Uncle Moses, and running errands for others in the area. At first, people were surprised, but soon they began to smile when they saw her. "That's Baba Kato's girl," they'd say kindly. Trust was something she never felt growing up, but now it was growing around her like a new garden. One evening, as they sat outside under the stars, Baba Kato looked at her and said, "You see, Amina, kindness creates miracles. Maybe not loud ones, but real ones." His words stayed with her, deep in her heart. She still had no parents, no fancy clothes, and no big future plans, but she had something she never had before: a routine, a purpose, and a kind man who believed in her. And with each passing day, she started to believe in herself too. Amina didn't just survive anymore, she was slowly learning how to live. One slow afternoon at the bike shop, Amina sat outside with a piece of scrap paper and a charcoal pencil she found in Baba Kato's toolbox. Just for fun, she started drawing little pictures of bicycles with playful designs and funny faces, like she used to when she was a child. She made one that looked like Baba Kato's bike, added wings to the wheels, and wrote, "Fast like a dream." She pinned a few of her drawings on the wooden wall near the shop, not thinking much of it. A few people walking by stopped to look. Then, one day, a man from the nearby cafe noticed the sketches. He stared for a long time, then smiled and said, "Did you draw these?" Amina nodded shyly. "Come paint something for my cafe wall," he said. "I'll pay you." She could hardly believe it. She spent 2 days painting a bright, colourful mural of people drinking tea, smiling, and riding bicycles. It made the whole cafe feel alive. When it was finished, the owner handed her 50,000 Ugandan shillings. Amina was speechless. No one had ever paid her for her drawings before. A few days later, a customer took a photo of the mural and shared it online. People started asking, "Who made this?" The post went viral in the area. Suddenly, her name, Amina, the artist, was being whispered in town. She didn't chase the spotlight, she just followed her heart. And now, her heart was finally being seen. After the mural went viral, Amina's life began to change faster than she ever imagined. Calls started coming in from nearby towns. People wanted her to paint on their walls, schools, shops, and even churches. Each time she picked up a brush, she painted with love, with memories, with the fire that had been waiting inside her for years. She no longer felt like the girl who was thrown out in the rain. She was now the girl who turned pain into colour. With Baba Kato's help, she came up with a name for her growing work: ArtByAmi. They made a small logo together, simple but full of heart. Baba helped her rent a tiny space on the corner of the main road where she could take orders, sketch ideas, and even teach a few kids how to draw. Her first signboard was her idea. She painted it herself in bold, bright colours. It said, "Never underestimate the rain." People stopped to read it. Some smiled. Some nodded slowly, like they understood. It wasn't just about weather. It was about her journey, how the worst night of her life led to the best part of her story. The shop was small, but it was hers. The brushes, the colours, the laughter of kids peeking in. All of it felt like a dream she didn't even know she had. And right beside her, always cheering her on, was the man who gave her hope when no one else did: Baba Kato. One evening, Amina was featured on a local TV show about young entrepreneurs making a difference. She sat in her art shop, smiling shyly as the cameras filmed her painting and talking about how she started ArtByAmi. She spoke about her journey, her struggles, and the man who gave her a second chance. "Sometimes," she said on camera, "a little kindness can change everything." Back in Mbale, her aunt and cousins were watching. Shock filled the room. The same girl they threw out was now on TV, confident, successful, and loved by the community. Within days, her aunt called. "Amina, you know we've always cared for you," she said, suddenly sweet. "Come home. Your uncle didn't mean what he said." Amina listened quietly. but her heart didn't race the way it once would have. She was no longer that scared girl crying in the rain. She had built something, not just a shop, but a life. She replied softly, but firmly, "You made your choice that rainy night. I made mine too." There was silence on the other end. No more pretending, no more guilt, just truth. Amina hung up the phone, took a deep breath, and stepped outside her shop. The sky looked like it might rain again, but this time she didn't feel fear. She felt power. She had found her family in kindness, not blood, and she wasn't going back. Not now, not ever. As Amina's name grew, so did her heart. She never forgot where she came from. The cold night, the muddy streets, the pain of being unwanted. She knew there were many girls out there just like her, kicked out of their homes with nowhere to go, no one to turn to. So she decided to do something about it. With the little money she had saved and help from kind neighbors, she started a small program called Canvas Shelter. It wasn't fancy, just a few rooms with mattresses, paints, brushes, and warm meals, but it was filled with love. Girls who had once felt invisible now had a safe place to sleep, to eat, and to create. They painted their pain, their dreams, their hopes, and Amina taught them not just how to draw, but how to believe in themselves again. In every interview she gave, Amina never took all the credit. She always smiled and said, "A stranger with nothing gave me everything." She was talking about Baba Kato, the man who had saved her without asking questions. She put his photo on the wall of the shelter, right above the words, "Kindness creates miracle." What started as one girl's survival turned into a movement of hope. Amina wasn't just painting walls anymore, she was painting new beginnings. For every girl who thought her life was over, Amina was there to say, "No, it's just beginning." 1 year later, the sky turned grey again, just like that night. The rain began to fall, steady and soft, tapping gently on the windows of Amina's art studio. She stood by the glass, holding a warm cup of tea, wrapped in a shawl that reminded her of Baba Kato. But this time, she wasn't cold. She wasn't scared. She wasn't standing barefoot in the mud. She was home, surrounded by her paintings, her students' drawings, laughter from the next room, and the smell of fresh paint and hope. Outside, across the street, a giant billboard stood tall. It was her latest artwork, full of bold colors and brave stories. At the bottom were the words she had once whispered to herself during her hardest days. "Sometimes, the storm carries you to where you were meant to be." Tears filled her eyes, but they weren't from pain. They were from pride, from growth, from love. She thought about that girl in the rain, the one with a torn bag and no home, and whispered softly, "You made it." The storm still came, but Amina, she was no longer broken. She was blooming,